Hey everyone and welcome back to my channel. This video is my review for the 7th episode of DC's Stargirl, otherwise titled Shiv Part 1. We are halfway through the season now and this show just keeps on getting better. I thought last week's episode was a bit weaker, but this episode was amazing once again. The Justice Society took a backseat this episode so that we could properly meet Stargirl's arch-nemesis, Shiv or Cindy, and I love this character now. The plot of the episode was that it was homecoming weekend and Cindy wanted to go to the dance with Henry, but he was preoccupied with his dad. Starting with this, Cindy's life started falling apart, and she grew tired of her life as a teenager and wanted to already have a spot on the ISA. Meanwhile, Pat was getting ready to train the new JSA while having to take the kids to the football game. The McKinns also seemed to be interested in the Whitmores, and we saw a bit more of the janitor. Once again, we didn't have a flashback to start off the episode. Even though we didn't have one last week, this was still surprising because this episode was back to being focused on one character, so I expected to have one for Cindy. Instead, we got a montage of the new JSA. Yolanda was working hard boxing while Beth was dancing and brushing her teeth while listening to music on the goggles. That was great. It was weird seeing that she hit the goggles when her parents walked in since she had no problem taking them to school. The interesting part about the scene was that her parents asked if she had made them breakfast, which she had not. This scene showed us that not only is Beth dependent on her parents, like we had already seen, but her parents have also been dependent on her. Even though her parents love her and don't abuse her like Yolanda and Rick's uncle, there are still some toxic parts of their relationship. I'm glad that Beth is finding herself and not relying on others, and isn't this what her parents wanted anyway? They told her to make friends, so they should be happy. Then we moved on to Cindy, who went to see Henry, who was with his dad at the hospital. Immediately you could tell she was annoyed about this, however she pretended to care. Then she asked Henry if he would go to the homecoming dance with her, which Henry obviously said no to because he was worried about his dad at the moment, but she said it might be good for him. So here we saw that she really does not care about him. We had gotten hints about this before, like in the Halloween episode, but this time we actually saw her being annoyed at spending time with him, and it doesn't seem like she actually likes him. At the school, we got the classic scene where the losers walk down the hall so happy and proudly until someone ruins the moment. This scene was kinda cringy, and I kinda expected them to get something thrown at them like in Glee, but instead, Cindy just pushed them aside and called them losers. Now, this was the moment that we found out about Cindy's past because the kids were wondering why she was so mean, and Beth said that she used to be nice until her mom died. I think they were in 4th grade, and since then, she's been the mean girl. At this moment, I was wondering if Dragon King killed her mom or maybe tried to experiment on her like he did on Cindy, but she died from it. Based on Courtney's reaction to this news, I assumed that she was going to think that Cindy was also a legacy kid of the JSA, and that she was going to try to be friends with her as a result. From that moment on, everything started going wrong for Cindy. After Jenny told her she had a date for the dance and Cindy didn't care, Jenny called her a bitch, and then Henry rejected her, so now she had no friends and no boyfriend, and then the janitor got her shoes dirty. I'll get back to him later. My prediction kind of came true, as Courtney and Cindy had to be lab partners in chemistry because they both had no one else to work with. Here we got to see that Cindy has a lot of experience in chemistry, obviously from the fact that her dad is the Dragon King and his experiments on her. When she mentioned that he left the chemicals out for her to play with, I wonder if that's what resulted in her mom's death. Anyway, Courtney and Cindy actually started becoming friends here, and we got to see a bit of a different side of Cindy for a second, and I like that and kind of hope they would stay friends. Cindy also told Courtney that she already had her number, which I think was a reference to the pilot when she said the same thing. They made plans to hang out since both of them weren't going to the dance, and next we got to see Cindy's home life. Her stepmother seemed to be afraid of her and kinda seemed like a Stepford wife. After her stepmother refused to give her wine and cheese, she threatened her and went down into her father's lair, which she was not allowed to go in. The interesting part here is that she actually went to eavesdrop on the ISA in their lair, and even passed by Grundy. So it seems that they are all in the same lair, which is kinda interesting. I assumed that Dragon King's lair was somewhere far away, which is why Isako hadn't seen him in a while, but now it seems like it's right next door to the ISA. I also didn't expect her dad's lair to be in her house. The ISA were discussing what to do about the new JSA, who they knew were kids. Tigress said they should send their kids after them, but Bowen was against it. This was interesting because it was the first hint we've gotten at what could be the new JSA, made up of Henry, Artemis, and Cameron. However, they decided to find out who they were themselves, and then Cindy was pulled away by her father, who was mad at her for going in there. He took her to his own lair, which looks amazing. I really love this set because it's like a comic book supervillain layer came to life. I love that about the show. It's not afraid to embrace the looks from the comics. I found it interesting that he asked Cindy if she should make her a new stepmom. So was she literally a Stepford wife? I assumed it was a woman he hired, but this actually would make sense for why she was acting so weird if she's actually a robot. We also learned that Cindy killed her mom during one of her tantrums, so it's understandable why she would behave the way she does, especially since as we saw throughout the episode, her dad was never there to support her and probably caused her more pain instead. Cindy also pointed out how she was tired of being a teenager and wanted a spot on the ISA, so for a second I thought that maybe this means she's actually way older than she seems, which will explain why the picture she has of her dad is in black and white. But the fact that she knew Beth as a kid doesn't fit with that. It's also clear that everything she's doing at school is being done to benefit the Dragon King, including her relationship with Henry, who she actually does not want to be with, and she feels lonely because she has no real friends that her father has not forced on her. Another interesting part was that when Cindy killed one of her dad's guards, he said that it took weeks to condition them. So are they all creations of his, just like his wife? This made me think that this is why he wanted the wizard's body. I assumed it was to bring him back to life, but now I think he planned on turning his body into one of his minions. Now let's catch up with the other characters. Henry had a math test and his powers were distracting him throughout it, but it seems he finally learned to control them and used them to cheat on the test, which was a great idea. It's a good thing Cindy doesn't know about his powers, because now that he's stronger, the ISA would probably want to use him instead of Brainwave for Project New America. Before she went to school, Courtney and Pat had to lie to Barbara and Mike that he's teaching her how to drive instead of training her, but Barbara and Mike are starting to realize that something is going on. I'd also forgotten that Mike was delivering newspapers, but I'm glad they brought that up again. This scene also made me think that Pat and Barbara's relationship could fall apart soon, especially because of the next time we saw her, she ran into Jordan at work and he offered her to go on a business trip with him, and she was honored. There's a lot of chemistry between them. She missed dinner before to go to a meeting with him, so I feel like she does have feelings for him, and it seems like Icicle does too. When Cameron told him that he should be happy, it seemed like Icicle was thinking of Barbara. Also, when Icicle was telling Cam the story about how he met his wife and that there was another man in the way, I assumed he killed him, and that's exactly what he said, but Cameron took it as a joke. Icicle and his wife's relationship seems really strange. They were basically stalking each other, and it seems like she was working with him because when she died, she told him to kill the people in his way. We only got one scene with the new JSA this episode, where they were finally going to train with Pat. He built their lair in his garage and took them into his version of the Danger Room from X-Men. He made some fake versions of the ISA members that were awful. They reminded me of when Cisco had that cardboard cutout, but that was much better than this. Pat went over the members of the ISA, and it annoys me how he still won't accept that Bowen is the new fiddler, although we did get our first look at the original one. However, before he finished talking, Courtney decided to destroy the fake ISA by herself, which annoyed everyone else, understandably. Finally, while Barbara went on her business trip, Pat took Mike and Courtney to the homecoming game. Once Pat left to get food, Mike finally took his anger out on Courtney over how much time she's spending with Pat because he's his dad. I still found Mike annoying this episode, but he was completely justified at this moment, because from what we have seen, Pat and Courtney went from hating each other to spending so much time together, and they obviously keep lying to Mike. The part that I found weird was that he said that he doesn't do the same with Barbara, but just last episode we saw him bonding with Barbara, and he also helped her get ready this episode. After his dad helped him build up his courage, Cameron came over to ask Courtney to the dance. This was a cute moment, and I kinda liked this pairing. Courtney told him she wasn't able to go to the dance because she was hanging out with Cindy. Then she made the stupid decision to go down to the field and tell Cindy. This really made no sense to me. Why would she go down there when Cindy was clearly busy with her failing cheerleading team? Also, I found it funny how she just left Cameron there in her spot, and then he was gone when Pat and Mike came back. Why didn't anyone take their spots? Cindy was happy to see her and said she wanted her on the team, but Courtney disappointed her by giving her the news, and as a result, Cindy ended their short-lived friendship. I actually felt bad for Cindy. As we could see, she was actually happy to have Courtney as a friend because she was her first true friend in a while other than Jenny, who she was already fighting with. She got to choose Courtney as a friend. It wasn't someone that was forced on her by her father, so she was probably really excited to hang out with her. It seemed like she expected Courtney to come back running to her, but when that didn't happen, she let her anger out the only way she knows how and threw a tantrum again, because once again, her dad wasn't there for her when she went to look for him. I kinda wish her friendship with Courtney had not ended so quickly. I was hoping for a Clark and Lex dynamic, like in Smallville, but that's probably not going to be possible after this next part. Courtney followed Bowen back into the school and overheard her saying that she was going to wake up Brainwave. Then she took the violin and went into a secret passageway through her office into the ISA's lair, with Courtney going behind her. First of all, why does Courtney keep her suit in her locker? I thought Beth taking the goggles to school was weird, but I guess no one pays attention to her, so it's fine. But this was just plain stupid from Courtney. Unlike other people, I didn't have a problem with Courtney's actions until this episode. We also now know that there are several entrances into the ISA's lair spread out throughout the town. The first time we saw the lair, it seemed like Icicle went to the basement of the American Dream, but now Cindy did the same thing but through the door at her house, and Bowen went in through her office. So the lair is now obviously in the sewers. It is connected to every part of the town, which gives the villains a huge advantage, although as we saw with Courtney, it must take a while to get there. Crusher probably has another door in his gym, and there's probably one in the school gym for Tigress. When Cindy went into the lair and didn't find her dad, she saw Stargirl trying to go in on the security camera, and this is the moment that she finally became Shiv. I think she might have done this because she was trying to prove herself to her father that she deserved a spot on the team by defeating the person they were after without them knowing. So she put on the suit, and when Courtney ended up back at the school, she attacked her. Shiv's suit looked amazing. I love all the detail it has, although it couldn't really be seen in the dark, and the lighting during the fights was one of my problems with the episode. And also her hair looks good in the style. I thought the white part looked bad before, but now it looks better. We finally got the first battle between Stargirl and Shiv, and it was a great fight scene. I think it's the best one the show has had so far. Shiv was such a badass and totally beat up Courtney. Courtney got one moment where she hurt Cindy and burned off her face, but it turns out Cindy is like Wolverine. Not only do claws come out of her hands, but she also has a healing factor. This actually shows how irresponsible Courtney is again, because she got lucky that Shiv has a healing factor. This whole battle was like an Enter Sue moment, or when Rain fought Supergirl for the first time, because the villain was obviously superior and destroyed the hero. Luckily for Courtney, the janitor came in at the last second and knocked Shiv out. Now let's go back to the janitor. Earlier in the episode, he got Cindy's shoes dirty and she insulted him. Courtney helped him and he called her my lady, which was the first hint at who he was. Then in his office, he had a picture of a horse he was looking at, and this made me think that maybe he was a horse turned into a human or something. But then we saw his sword, which led me to the conclusion that he was King Arthur. This prediction was kind of close because, spoiler alert, he's apparently Sir Justin, otherwise known as Shining Knight, one of the knights of King Arthur's court. This was spoiled in one of the trailers and is accurate to the comics. Now the interesting part is that it looks like he has amnesia, although he does recognize Pat at the end and calls him Stripesy. After saving Courtney, he hid behind the bleachers, and then Pat was guided there by the staff and came in yelling Courtney's name. This was pretty stupid of him because he literally exposed her identity at a public event full of people, and Shiv was right next to Courtney. She stood up at that moment, so now she knows who Stargirl is. Although, how didn't she realize that before, because that hair should make it obvious. At least Courtney also knows Cindy is Shiv since she doesn't even wear a mask. As I was saying, Pat came in and found Courtney unconscious in the middle of the gym. Overall, I thought this was a great episode, and it made Cindy one of my favorite characters in the show, the other ones being Yolanda and Rick. I'm also interested in Cameron and where they will take his character, but right now, I don't really want him to turn bad, because they already said in this episode that he's the artsy kid, and it feels like it would just be following that whole stereotype that the quiet artsy kid has mental problems and ends up losing it and hurting his classmates, kinda like a school shooter. Especially since the episode had Cindy become something more than just a mean girl stereotype. Also, like I said before, this episode I finally agreed with other people that Courtney is being really annoying and irresponsible, from doing the training by herself, going after Bowen, and burning Cindy's face, and many other examples. So hopefully the fact that Shiv beat her up will calm her down. But then again, I thought that's what Joey Steph would do, and obviously that didn't happen. But honestly, this was one of my favorite episodes. Cindy is amazing, and I think that I prefer the show when it focuses on the younger characters and the high school aspect of their lives being balanced with being a hero, like in this one, or the Wildcat episode, or Our Man and Dr. Midnight. I also really like how Shiv is like the darker version of Courtney, with both of them disobeying their father figures, wanting to be a hero or villain already, and they even have similar weapons, although Cindy has more experience. I think I will give this episode a 9 out of 10. I'm really looking forward to next episode, which also looks great because Courtney and Shiv will be fighting once again. I kind of hope to see them go to the homecoming dance, but that probably won't be possible for Courtney and Cameron, although maybe the dance won't happen at all since their battle wrecked the gym. Well, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe for similar content. I do Stargirl reviews each week along with reviews for the 100. Leave your thoughts on the episode and the video in the comments, and have a good day. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.